Welcome to Your Vote Counts, a candidate forum sponsored by Capital Community TV and the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk Counties. My name is Diana Bodker, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization that works to educate ourselves and the public about government issues. In this program, we will present the candidates for the Salem City Council, Ward 4. They are Steve McCoid and Jackie Leung. Our format for this forum is as follows. Each candidate has 3 minutes to give an opening statement outlining the candidate's background and their top 3 priorities if elected. Following that, each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to answer questions that have been prepared by League members on current issues. The candidates were not given the questions ahead of time. At the end, the candidates will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement in which to state the legacy they would like to leave if elected to the office. The question order will rotate, so we will begin with Mr. McCoid as candidate A for his opening remarks.
Thank you. And I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting us to this event and giving us this opportunity to speak to the community. First and foremost, I went about and looked from 4 years ago and found my notes from the CCTV appearance then. And I read them and went, dang, that's pretty much what I still believe, so I'm going to do that again and talk about it. And first and foremost, the city councilor serves as an effective representative of the ward he or she represents. That means being inclusive. That's why the job is nonpartisan. That means having an open door to all and lending one's ear to all concerns, complaints, and suggestions. And it means working to bring the ward together to work as one to solve the issues and problems that we deal with. My work experience led me to develop these type of skills, leading 2 statewide nonprofit trade associations for 33 years. I'm offering that skill set to the residents of Wards 4 as I know I'll be an effective advocate for their issues. The bottom line is that the Salem citizens expect the 8 councilors elected to represent them to work together to do what is right for the city and the residents in a collegial fashion. There can and will be disagreements, but at the end of the day, agreement on a course of action needs to be reached for the good of the city. And in the past 4 years, I've walked the talk here. I've been the city council president for 3.5 of the 4 years. I've been a moderate voice and an independent that's brought the folks together to talk and reach decisions and conclusions that have turned into good policy. The priorities I haven't changed either. Overseeing the allocation of funds to ensure that the city operates in an effective and efficient manner and delivers the services that are expected by its citizens. And that is police and fire, infrastructure like sewer, water, roads, signage, parks, and planning. If you do all those things and do them well, that results in livable and safe neighborhoods for the citizens in Salem. And finally, I want to ensure the city continues to work to provide an environment for business that attracts new investment to the city, assists small startup businesses, and doesn't pass policies that harm business. And I can say, and we've done that for the past 4 years, and the results are Amazon coming to town, bringing 1,000 jobs, Oregon Fruit staying in Salem and keeping 80 jobs, and ongoing investments that have $371 million in investments in the city in the last year alone. I'm willing and able to continue to work as an unpaid volunteer leader in this city. I bring a lifetime of skills and abilities to the position, and frankly, I would love to work for another 4 years representing Ward 4 and working with the city manager and staff.
Ms. Leung?
So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I appreciate the Women League voters and just the welcoming space that this has been. So thank you. So my combined leadership and my education makes me an ideal city councilor. So my leadership experience includes serving on leadership roles within the local, county, and state levels. This includes serving as a commissioner with the Human Rights Advisory and Relations Commission, and for now I have, since January, I've been vice chair of. In addition, I'm also a member of the Marion County Health Advisory Board, and I'm also a commissioner with the Oregon Commission of Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs. And further, I have also been involved with the Oregon Hunger Task Force since last year. So I am also a working mother within this gig economy. I am balancing several different part-time jobs to be able to make ends meet. As a law graduate from Willamette University with a background in public health, my goal is to ensure that fairness and equal decisions are made and that these are taken into consideration, and especially the impact that it has within our growing community. There is no doubt that our Salem community is growing, but while we are also supporting the growth of Salem, we also need to make sure that the current residents who live here in Salem and the current businesses here in Salem are also protected. As a city council representative, there are three main things I am focused on. The first one is I want to work to reform City Hall. Specifically, I want city leadership to be more accountable and responsive to their citizens. And I also want to ensure that the structural design of the City Hall is protected against future earthquakes. I also want to protect our emergency services. I want to ensure that emergency response times are adequate to continue to meet the growing needs of our community, and ensuring that we're training enough volunteers to be activated in emergency situations. Most importantly, I want Salem to grow safely and also affordably. I want to reduce flood risks. I want to protect our dwellings' open space. And I also want to lower housing costs, especially for first-time home buyers. Further, another reason why I'm also running is because right now, this year, there are 5 seats that are open for re-election. And until I entered this race, there were only 1 other seat that was available, that was contested. And so, as right now, there's only 2 women of 9 who are on the city council. So I want to be able to increase the number of women and the number of representation of Salem community members. And as Salem grows, we also need to make sure that our leadership also reflects that change in that diversity. So not only am I running for myself, but I am also running for my community. I want to make sure that not only are the community needs are heard, but also ensuring that we are protecting the needs of our community as our community continues to grow.
Ms. Leung, why are you qualified for this position?
I think I answered it a little bit a moment ago, but I am more than happy to talk about that a little bit more. So as I had mentioned earlier, I have now served on the Human Rights and Relations Advisory Committee now for 2 years, specifically as vice chair since January of this year. That shows a lot of the leadership activities that I have done specifically for that commission, in addition to a lot of the work I've done within that particular commission in my role with the Marion County Health Advisory Board, and also as a commissioner with OCAPIA, or the Oregon Commission on Asian Pacific Islander Affairs. I've done a lot of work looking into policy, as well as making policy decisions and recommendations to leaders within the community. In addition to the work that I do at that level, I'm also part of several different nonprofits, and the work I do within nonprofits includes serving as a chair of the Micronesian Islander Committee, which I have done now for 3 years altogether, first 2 years as a co-chair, and this year will be my first year as a chair. And within those 3 years, we've seen our board members increase from 3 to now 10, and we also now have 2 full-time staff members working for us. So that is a demonstration of a lot of the leadership skills that I bring into the position. Thank you.
Mr. McCoid.
Well, I bring a career of working in this kind of atmosphere to the table. And as I've said, it's translated into my ending up being the city elected president for the city council for the last 3.5, 4 years. My career was in statewide trade associations, and the construction of those the businesses is much like the manner in which the city works. In this case, I was the executive director working with a volunteer board of directors elected by the membership. And so I got used to dealing with committees, bringing various personalities together to reach consensus on issues, and working together to have people work together as a team. I knew that that skill set would translate to what I was doing at City Hall, and it has. In other terms, I've served on a number of different boards and commissions during my career, and in almost every instance, I was elected the leader of those boards as I went through them. Things like the Hunger Relief Task Force, I was the president of that for 4 years. League of the National Grocers Association on their board, the National Restaurant Association on their board, Oregon Society of Association Executives, elected president. I could go on. I've long career, lots of places I've served on. There you go.
Mr. McCoid, do you feel the resources allotted to the City Council are adequate to fulfill the responsibilities of the office?
It's an interesting question. I get people, when you're out knocking door to door, often think that we're paid and we have a staff and somehow we have all this ability to do a lot of things. That's not the case. You know, we're unpaid volunteer leaders elected by the people to make sure their interests are watched after during this process. But the reality is, it's a city manager, a strong city manager, weak council form of government. The city manager is the person we hire as the council to oversee and hire the staff that runs the city. That staff runs the city. We give them guidance on how we want it to run, the goals we want to see met, and we have input. But frankly, for city councilors, it's probably fine. I can't see where in our volunteer position we'd need a staff. So the staff helps us in all ways, and you can imagine, to get us informed. I don't think, I frankly think I've got what I need to do my job the way it's constructed. The problem with that question, I think, is presupposing that there's more to it than that. It's not a paid position. And real frankly, I don't think any of us are politicians. We're volunteers at the highest order in this community.
All right. Ms. Leung, what would you say to that?
Oh, I have to agree. I mean, it is a volunteer position. It's unpaid, and if you're reading the description, it says it's a part-time position. But as a city councilor, I mean, you're wearing the hat constantly, no matter where you are. Even if you are walking in public, like, you may not necessarily be going somewhere as a city council member. But then if someone in your community stops you on the street, you have to automatically put on the hat and be willing to take that time to speak to you, to the individuals within the community. Because, I mean, the position itself, it's not a paid job, but then you are constantly on the go and have to be ready and being able to be presentable and engage with whoever speaks with you. And like as Councilor McCoid has mentioned too, that it's the city manager who is the one who makes the decisions, and as our role as a city council will be the one to be making sure that the final decisions that are made by the city manager are the ones that we are in agreement with. And I can't think of anything of that else that city council members would need, other than just the opportunity to be able to be that voice from our community, to be able to serve our community effectively, and being there out with our community, getting to know our community, making sure that if a community member had a problem or a question, it's something that either we're able to address, or if not us specifically, then us being able to know what are those mechanisms to be able to address the situation for our community members.
All right. So, Ms. Leung, what improvements would you advocate in the city council system?
I think that's a very loaded question. So I think that one of my big things would be making sure that, Salem is a very welcoming and inclusive city, and while Salem is continuing to grow, we're seeing the growth of new businesses coming in, new residents moving in. We also still need to make sure that the needs of our current residents and our current businesses are also protected. So this also includes, for example, when we have renters who are facing a housing crisis, specifically as they're seeing the pricing of rental costs has increased, but then they're not being able to afford living in their apartments or their homes, and they've lived there for so many years. I could give you one really prime example of a neighbor of mine who lived upstairs from me for about 8 years. And they finally moved out last year, and they ended up moving to Independence. So they uprooted their families and moved their children children out of schools because they weren't able to afford living here in Salem. But then they still have to commute here to Salem for work, but otherwise their families were taken away from schools, and so we've lost them as residents here. So we got to make sure that as Salem is growing, that we also protect our citizens who currently live here, as well as our current businesses as well.
Mr. McCoy,
Could you repeat the question, please?
what improvements would you advocate in the city council system?
Well, I'll tell you, the one frustration I had when I first went on the council, and I continue to have it to some degree, is the huge responsibility that gets placed on a councilor's shoulders to make decisions when you know you've got a disparate group of citizens living in your ward from all political persuasions. And there's no real way or a mechanism right now for any councilor to really reach out and find out what folks think on a given issue. And so I guess if I had a druther, that maybe some kind of a budget or a mechanism where we had the ability to reach out to the citizens in the ward on specific issues and try to find out what they thought, what their feelings were, and get a feel for what they thought about the different things, instead of just placing it all on us and it's a little bit by gosh and by gum. You know, one of the things I'm excited about that was passed, and this deals with this to a degree, is the strategic plan. Instead of just drafting one that we thought what we wanted, we got citizen input through a variety of open houses, a statistically valid poll, and we asked them what they wanted from city government instead of trying to tell them what we thought they wanted. And so I'm a little more comfortable with what's going on there, and that strategic plan will come in and we'll be doing the citizens' wishes rather than just trying to interpret them. But that to me is the biggest problem with this system.
Mr. McCoid, how do you feel the City Council should answer the situation of homeless shelter expansion, and how does this reflect your ideas about our homeless population?
Well, the city is dealing with the homeless population, and I think the mayor had a really great way of stating it. You can't fix this problem in a wholesale manner. You fix this problem one person at a time, which by definition, if you accept that, and I do, that means there is no one solution to this issue. You've got to figure out what you're doing, and the mayor's proposal, worked up by the Salem Housing Authority staff, of a housing first approach, which is basically you're not going to get anywhere with any chronically homeless person if they don't have housing. If they're worried about where they're sleeping that night and staying out of the elements, they're not real worried about making an appointment or finding a job or any of those things. And so we've got that going. We're approaching 50 people housed and off the streets. Goal is 80 by the end of this year and 100 going into the next fiscal year. It's an expensive proposition, but it is working, and the folks are there. We're not having a lot of recidivism. We've had only one person out of 48 leave and go back to the streets. So that's a good thing. As far as the shelter, we're still it's a quasi-judicial matter, and I can't really speak to that publicly right now.
All right, thank you. Ms. Leung?
When it comes to working specifically with the houseless community, we have to be able to take a multifaceted approach. As Councilor McCoid had mentioned, there is a Housing First program that that's available for up to 100 houseless community members at this time. I also understand that Salem has a full-time service coordinator case manager who has, at least for the past 2 years, has been coordinating community service providers to continue to meet the diverse needs of the houseless community. There has also been a downtown homeless solutions task force that has met a total of 4 different times at least to discuss ways that the local businesses within downtown Salem would be able to work with the growing houseless community. So those are several of the things I've been seeing that Salem has been doing, which I believe are great first steps towards addressing the issues that we're seeing, especially with the increase of the houseless community. I also believe that the shelter, hopefully it will be once everything gets done and over with, that it will actually be built. And I also understand that there was a youth houseless shelter that was funded not too long ago, and that is currently in the works as well. So it's nice to be able to see that there are different areas that people are taking consideration, especially when working with the houseless community, because we have individuals from different walks of life who have different lived experiences, and we need to make sure that whatever experiences they're bringing in, that we're able to properly address a situation that they're experiencing.
All right. Ms. Leung, an additional bridge is an ongoing topic in our community. How do you
Yes.
respond to the statements made about the need for a third bridge?
So I have looked specifically into the current Salem Alternative Third Bridge proposal, and I have several concerns about it. My first one is whether it is actually workable, because it closes the Rosemont exit and it does not fix the Wallace Road, which is the primary problem. It is also not affordable because it is based on a property tax increase. There's also a local gas tax, a local vehicle tax, and a dollar, at least $1.50 toll each way on each of the Willamette bridges. And in addition, I mean, in our particular ward too, we also have pressing traffic issues. So we have to also make sure that in addition to addressing the bridge, that we also are protecting where we live as well. I also understand that there is a congestion relief task force meeting that has been meeting several times already, and that there is a fourth meeting on May 4th. And I hope that many of your viewers attend those task force meetings and are a part of the process.
All right. Mr. McCoid?
Okay, I call that the second bridge. We only really have one if you go both ways. But I'm a practical guy, and I look at this. I moved here in 1974. It was like 65,000 people on the sign as you came into town. We're now at 170,000 basically, and we're projected in the next 20 years, in less than 20 years now, by 2035, to have 250,000 people living in the city. It defies logic for me how we can have that big of a growth. A lot of that growth will be in West Salem, and not need another bridge over that river. Now, the issue becomes, is it the big bridge that Ms. Leung talked about here, or is it just a bridge that gets people from the west side to the east side of the river, or the east side to the west side of the river in their daily manners? In either case, what we're at right now, and where I'm really concerned, so I think a bridge should be built. Does it have to be the huge bridge that they're talking about? I don't think so, but we need another bridge across that river. But where we're at right now, an environmental impact statement, the staff has worked on it for 10 years, spent $8 million, and it's now in danger of not being approved because of some appeals that the staff has to work with, and the current council doesn't support it. My concern is that's the paperwork to build any bridge. If it goes away, you have another 10 years and another $8 million to get to where we are to even consider a bridge, and it'll be a generation before a bridge could be built. I think we need to clear the environmental impact statement. We'll have about a 10-year life to work with that, and then discuss how we can pay for a bridge.
All right. Mr. McCoid, your closing comments.
My clue already. Well, that was fast. I was having trouble answering the question. I have thoroughly enjoyed my first 3.5. I'm in my 4th year on the council. It's everything I thought it would be. To me, it's the highest form of volunteerism in the city. It's not an easy job. It's very complicated, and I felt for many years, months, when I first came on board, the proverbial drinking from a fire hose. It was so much information coming from a city that has a $600 million budget and all these different departments, and you were trying to rule on them. It was really difficult to get up to task, and it took me, real frankly, and I think it would anybody, 1.5 to 2 years. Well, I've got that behind me. The last 2 years I've been much more productive. I would like to take that experience and the knowledge I've gained and serve another 4 years and be a productive counselor for the city and a leader on the council, as I have been for the last 4 years. We've got a lot of things to work on. The list is big. But it's just right now we have a budget to deal with. PERS is biting into the budget, and we have real decisions to make on revenues. We have to open a fire station 11. We have to deal with the environmental impact statement. The strategic plan needs to be addressed and babied along, because if we don't, it won't be become part of the city's operating system, and it'll just go on a shelf, and we won't enjoy all the things that will benefit us from. We also have we're going to be rewriting the Salem Comprehensive Plan, which is really the roadmap that the staff works on or follows when they're going about their business. And finally, we have to maintain our momentum on attracting jobs to the area. Again, we're going to have 70,000 more people in the next 18 years. They're going to have to live somewhere, and they're going to have to work somewhere. And so it's important that we keep that business climate going. So I'm happy to offer my services for another 4 years in this volunteer position if the ward so sees it. If not, congratulations to Jackie as she moves into that position.
And your closing statement.
I feel like the development community has had its more fair share of its influence on city decisions, and I want to be the voice to add to that balance. We also need to make sure that we continue to have the city hold developers to their obligations, whether it's keeping the Creekside Valley, especially as an open space, or even for making sure that as our communities continue to grow, that we also are protecting the citizens and the residents and the businesses that are currently here. As I mentioned earlier, I want to be able to reform City Hall both figuratively and structurally. So again, that includes making sure that internally our City Hall is representative of the people within the community, that we represent our people both. We're seeing that Salem is becoming more diverse, especially as it's growing. We need to be able to see that within our leadership. And in addition to having the city leaders being accountable to their citizens and also less beholden to developers, we also need to have the seismic updates that are needed for the City Hall to continue to grow. I also believe that it would be very important for us, especially as Salem becomes this larger city, that we also are taking into consideration what our role is as city councilors. And that includes making sure that when we are out there representing our ward, that we are there, serving as a voice, that we're able to effectively serve our community by not only checking in with our community members, but also just being present and engaged with our community. And that includes being able to work with our city council members and making sure that the work that we're doing is within our abilities and also within the guidelines. And I honestly hope that the viewers and everyone in the ward selects me. But if not, I also wish Councilor McCoid the best of luck, and that if they end up selecting you and you win again, congratulations as well.
All right. That is all the time we have. You have been watching Your Vote Counts, a candidate forum for Salem City Council Ward 4 with Steve McCoid and Jackie Leung. We hope you will watch our other candidate forums, and please see CCTV website for time and dates. These forums are a public service to voters to become more acquainted with candidates who hope to lead our city, county, and state governments in the coming years. Ballots will be mailed ballots will be mailed the last week of April and should be returned May 15th by 8 p.m. Remember, postmarks do not count. We urge you to make democracy work and be a voter. This is Diana Bodker for the League of Women Voters and CCTV, thanking you for watching Your Vote Counts.